Hey look! This film was produced by Hanna-Barbera. You know, the animation company that was well known for creating animated TV shows like The Flintstones, The Jetsons, Yogi Bear, and Scooby-Doo. And guess what? This is also another animated project that they worked on where the characters are trying to protect the environment. What? Working on Captain Planet wasn't enough for you guys? Caution! The following video is an in-depth review of the movie I'm currently reviewing, which means that there will be massive spoilers in the review. If you haven't seen this movie yet, then please feel free to watch this movie first before watching this video. However, if you have already seen this movie, or you just want to know my thoughts on this movie, then keep watching. Once Upon a Forest was another environmental animated film that came out during the early 1990s. It was made around the same time as Fern Gully: The Last Rainforest, which was another environmental animated film that was made by the same company, Fox. Unfortunately, this movie has the dishonor of becoming obscure by the public. If you haven't heard of this movie before, then I don't blame you. This movie often goes by unnoticed, even by fans of environmental movies in general. Unless you are a huge animation fan like myself, then chances are this movie would have gone under the radar for you. However, despite all that, this movie was unique in how it handled the humans versus nature argument that was prevalent in most environmental films of the early 1990s. But before we go into more detail with that, I would like to give out a brief summary of this film. The film starts off with three young furlings named Abigail, a headstrong female mouse, Russell, the ever-hungry hedgehog, and Edgar, a meek yet determined mole, attending classes with their teacher Cornelius. Everything was going fine for the furlings, Michelle and Cornelius, when suddenly a huge truck ended up running over a shard of broken glass in the road and ran off the road into Dapplewood Forest. It turns out that the truck was carrying a tank of poisonous gas, and the gas ended up coming out of the tank and killing everything in Dapplewood Forest. When the furlings and Cornelius found out about this, Michelle ends up running towards her parents' house, but it turns out that the poisonous gas got into her parents' house and poisons Michelle in the process. Once the furlings and Cornelius carry Michelle's unconscious body back to Cornelius' house, Cornelius then tells the furlings that the only way to save Michelle is for them to go on to another meadow to retrieve some ingredients that can help Michelle. So the furlings embark on a journey by themselves to retrieve the ingredients that would save Michelle before it's too late. This was one of those films that I used to watch a lot when I was younger, and it was also one of those films that stayed with me for years. Sure, I've seen many other films that tackle environmental issues and talk about how pollution can have a negative impact on the environment. However, I have never seen an environmental movie that was very realistic about the consequences that pollution can have on the environment, while also teaching the audience that not all humans are bad. In terms of showing the realistic side effects of pollution, the creators have actually done some research on chlorine gas and how it can cause dangerous side effects on people or animals if they breathe it in. Well, they didn't really call it chlorine gas in the film. It just said poison gas on the truck that was carrying the gas. No, really. That's what it actually said on the truck. Gee, what a way to make it so obvious to the kids. Anyway, I kind of wish that the movie would have just called the gas chlorine instead of poison. This would have helped alert the kids about which types of gases would be deadly to them and how they can avoid them if possible. Despite all this though, I do like the fact that the movie showed the actual effects that can be caused by breathing in chlorine gas. It shows that yes, breathing in too much of the chlorine gas can cause damage to the eyes and lungs, and it can also potentially kill you if you were exposed to it for too long. Another reason why this film was so unique from the other environmental movies that were being released at the time was because it was one of the few movies to show the humans actually repair the damage that they had caused. Most of the environmental films that I had seen at the time would usually portray the humans as being either evil or greedy. In this movie, however, while the cause of the conflict was started by a human being, towards the end of the film, it's the humans themselves who came by to clean up the forest after the gas spillage. It sends an important message to the audience that even though humans sometimes make mistakes when it comes to the environment, they are capable of fixing their own mistakes when given the chance. I especially love the scene where Edgar gets trapped in the cage towards the end of the film, and one of the human beings picks up the cage that he was trapped in and suddenly frees him. This act of kindness has shown Cornelius, who early on was frightened of humans due to a traumatic experience he went through years ago, that not all humans are as bad as he thought they were. I also like the fact that we get to see the world from the furlings' point of view. What may look like regular activities for us human beings are portrayed as being terrifying for the furlings. Like for example, there was a scene in the movie where the furlings have to cross a wide area of land in order to reach the meadow. They are then warned about a yellow dragon dwelling around the area and that they should avoid it at all costs. It turns out that said yellow dragon was actually a giant yellow bulldozer that was in a construction working zone. Even though we human beings are used to construction machinery, the Furleys were in danger of being killed by these machines due to their small size and not knowing how to deal with these machines. I like the fact that the Furleys don't clearly understand any of the human technology used in this film due to them not being able to go outside until midway through the film. However, when the Furleys actually go to the outside world, it was then that they understood that not all humans are bad, and they started to develop a better understanding of humans in general by the end of their journey. Now that I talked about the various themes that were explored in this movie, I would like to talk about the characters themselves. Abigail the Mouse was a very interesting female protagonist in this movie. She is shown as being a tomboy, as she usually enjoys a lot of activities that her male friends enjoy, like climbing trees. She is also shown to be very headstrong, as she is willing to dive into any dangerous situation head on, which of course leads her to being a bit reckless at times. However, she is also shown as being very brave when the situation calls for it, and that's a very positive trait of her character that the movie deals with very well. I especially love the scene where she rescues Michelle from the poisonous gases that affected Michelle's home. Even though Abigail could have been killed by the poisonous gases, she still risked her life just to save her friend, which even Cornelius was grateful for. Abigail's character arc in this film is to be more cautious and less reckless in her actions, which she slowly starts to develop over the course of the film. Edgar the Mole was another interesting character in this film, and probably has the most fleshed out character arc among the Furlings. Edgar started out the film as being knowledgeable, yet afraid of everything. But once he goes on the journey along with Abigail and Russell to find the ingredients that will help cure Michelle, he starts becoming much braver as the film progresses. I enjoy seeing the character progression with Edgar because it was actually natural. Slowly he starts helping out various creatures along the way by using his brains and bravery to solve the problems. This was especially prominent during the scene with Phineas the Preacher Wren, which I'll go into more depth with later. Another scene that really showcased Edgar's growing bravery throughout the film was the scene where Wags the Squirrel insulted Michelle. This causes Edgar to get angry and defend Michelle by calling out Wags' insensitivity towards Michelle. There's not much to say about Russell the Hedgehog since he is like the third wheel in the group. He's pretty much just there as a third person in the group, and he doesn't really have much of a character arc compared to Abigail and Edgar. I guess you could say that if he does have a character arc, it would be to appreciate his family and friends a bit more. Which he does start appreciating Abigail and Edgar a bit more throughout the film as they go on their journey. And like Abigail and Edgar, he was worried about his family as their families had ran out of the forest to escape the poisonous gas early on in the film, and the Furlings weren't sure what became of their families at the time. Cornelius the Badger was another character that I really liked, as he was the Furlings' wise old teacher. I like the way that Cornelius tried to help out the Furlings any way he can, even though he had to stay behind to help Michelle, who was dying of illness. It shows that even though Cornelius can be a bit stern with the Furlings at times, he does ultimately care about them. Michael Crawford did a fantastic job at voicing Cornelius, as he makes Cornelius sound so wise yet stern at the same time, and it fits so well with Cornelius' personality. My favorite scene featuring Cornelius was when he was singing Please Wake Up. That was honestly the best song in the film, and I love the raw emotion that Michael Crawford put into singing this song. It was even stated that Michael Crawford himself was crying when he was singing this song, which I completely understand. The fact that this song was about an uncle singing a beautiful song to his dying niece was something that made me tear up every time I heard this song. This song can hit home for many parents who also have kids that are either dying or are sick, and they start worrying about their child's well-being, which I completely sympathize with. Okay, so now let's talk about Phineas the Preacher Wren, because, well, his scene is the oddest part of the movie. Do you remember the scene in All Dogs Go to Heaven when the big-lip alligator suddenly shows up out of nowhere and starts singing with Charlie? And yet he had nothing to do at all with the plot of the film? That's what it was like with Phineas the Preacher Wren. Yeah, he was singing this awesome gospel song when they were trying to free a young bird child from the quicksand, but what does that scene have to do with the plot of this movie? It seems like because the creators were able to get Ben Viren to come and voice a character in this movie, they wanted to showcase Ben Viren's singing talent by having this random scene of a preacher bird singing come out of nowhere. The biggest theme of this movie is the importance of teamwork. The film starts off with the Furleys not getting along with each other, which causes problems for both Cornelius and themselves. So when the Furleys have to go on this journey to find the ingredients that would save Michelle's life, they start learning about the importance of teamwork, and working together eventually helps them succeed in their mission. I know this sounds like the usual, "Hey kids, teamwork is important" message that you see in a lot of children's shows, but it was actually very well done here, as Michelle's life actually hinges on whether or not the Furleys can work together to get the job done. Probably the best thing about this movie was the late James Horner's music. James Horner's music was always such a joy to listen to when I was little, and the soundtrack for this film was no exception. I just love how dramatic and beautiful the soundtrack was, and it managed to hit the right places at the right time. I especially love James Horner's music doing the song Please Wake Up, as it was both beautiful and sad at the same time, and it managed to bring a tear to my eyes every time I listened to it. Now that I talked about what I liked about this film, I would like to talk about some of the issues that I had with this film. First off, I had some problems with the animation of this film. I'm assuming that this was a low-budget animated film that was shown in theaters at the time, but if you are going to show an animated film in theaters, then the animation needs to be of least high quality to make it more interesting to the movie-going audience. There were times when the animation was a bit clunky, and sometimes the characters would appear off-model, like Abigail's eye color constantly changing each scene. If this movie was shown as a TV special or something like that, I probably wouldn't have much of a problem with the animation. Also, there were times where the pacing of the film seems a bit too slow. One moment you have some action sequences of the Furlings trying to avoid many dangerous situations during their journey, and then the next minute you have long instances of dialogue and focusing on the appearances of the forest. Another problem that I had with this film was the fact that the film didn't seem to know which character they wanted to focus on. As I mentioned before, both Abigail and Edgar have character arcs where they learn to either be brave or to be more cautious of danger. But there were times where it seemed like they set up a situation that would have completed one character's arc, but then that character's arc is interrupted by another character's arc. For example, when the Furlings finally make it to the meadow and they try to get a flower that's located on a high cliff, Abigail tries to get the flower herself. But she ends up falling off the makeshift flying machine that the Furlings built, and Edgar ends up getting the flower instead after they rescue Abigail. So in this scene, was Abigail supposed to get the flower herself to prove that she could be brave without being reckless? Or was Edgar always meant to get the flower so that his character arc on becoming brave was completed? I honestly don't know which character we were supposed to be rooting for throughout the film. I know that I was supposed to root for all three characters when they started working together, but I can't help but feel like the film wanted me to be more invested in either Abigail's story or Edgar's story. Once Upon a Forest was rated G. Even though there were some intense scenes, especially the scene of the gas leaking to the forest and killing whoever came into contact with it, the film for the most part was pretty tame, and is something that can be enjoyed by the whole family. Overall, I give Once Upon a Forest a score of an 8 out of 10. Even though the film seems to have issues with which character they wanted to focus on, and the animation could have been better, the film actually sends a great message about the importance of teamwork and fixing your own mistakes. This was probably one of the most realistic animated environmental films that I have ever seen, even if it does feature talking animals. And it was also one of the few environmental films at the time that actually showed humans trying to save the environment even after they caused some problems for the environment. This is definitely a great environmental film to watch if you want a closer look at how damaging pollution can be for the environment. Hope you enjoy my review of Once Upon a Forest. Now it's time for... So if you like Once Upon a Forest, then I would highly recommend The Secret of NEM. It also involves a mouse character, in this case Miss Brisby, embarking on a dangerous journey in order to save her loved one from a fatal illness. If you like the environmental tone of this movie, then I definitely recommend Fir Gully The Last Rainforest. It's another animated film for Fox that dealt with the importance of taking care of the environment, except it has fairies in it. And if you like the mouse world setting of this film, then I recommend Dawn Blue Stumbelina, which features a small girl, no tiny than a thumb, meeting up with various creatures of the forest when she tries to find her way back home. Psst. Hey you, have you been enjoying the Reviews 2.0 videos? Want to get an added bonus for viewing these videos? Like getting early access to these videos before they are released on YouTube? Or being able to request what movies and TV shows I should review next? Then please feel free to support these videos through my Patreon account. Check out all of the tier titles on my account and choose which tier title you want to be known as. You could become a new member on the block, an early bird, be a part of the future Bunch team, a backstage passenger, an animation superstar, and last but not least, the honorary supreme. So show off your tier title name to the world once you support the Reviews 2.0 videos through Patreon.